Could everyone make their way towards the seating area? We're about to start in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
and gentlemen, we're going to be starting in 30 seconds. Please take a seat. Everyone, please take your seats. Some seats at the back, everyone. Come on now. Let's get cozy. Come on in. All right, everyone, please take your seats. I'm very excited to introduce the co-organizers of this event, Noam and Benny. Please, big round of applause.
Hello?
Check.
Hello, everyone.
Everyone, wow. This is, it's amazing to see so many people here. It's actually, you know, I really, 20 years ago when I ran for student council, I came out to this famous wrestler's theme song. I really wanted to have a big grandiose entrance, but I guess I'll have to say that for next time.
So we started InvestTO about 2 years ago with the goal of building a vibrant community for investors of all walks of life. Our motto is don't speculate, educate. And we believe with education, networking, and the support of a community, we can make all better investment decisions.
So our past events have focused a lot on real estate and private equity and sort of other traditional asset classes. And we thought, you know what? Crypto is really becoming a large and disruptive asset class in the financial industry. And you know what? We're going to leave our comfort zone and take a chance. And you know, I think it's going to work out tonight.
So even though we're organising this event, Ben and I know very little about crypto, about the crypto world, but we were excited to share with you that we have sourced from around the globe the five most dynamic and exciting speakers to give you a broad but deep understanding of investment opportunity and risks in cryptocurrencies and blockchain companies.
Okay, great. But I think we have a giveaway, right? I think you know, we are very generous. We are giving away 50 Ripple coins. Can I get a ooh? Woo! Okay, you don't need to check how much that's worth, but it's enough for a nice dinner, I think, for a couple people. So, no, how
so yeah, to enter the contest, go on our Instagram page, follow us, click on that middle blue photo, like it, and comment on it, and you'll be entered into the raffle, and we'll announce it at the end of the night.
Okay.
All right, now.
Yeah, so feel free to, please enter our contest. So, these events don't magically come together. It really takes a lot of hard work. So, if you don't mind, I really just want to go through a plethora of thank yous. So let's get it going. Noam.
So we want to thank the entire InvestTO team. I'll say them in alphabetical order. Corey Pfefferman. That's the entire team. But a huge thank you to Corey. Ben has also put in a lot of work, and we also have great volunteers tonight, Natalie and Robin, who've helped us with this evening's event.
Okay, as you probably have seen from some of the marketing materials, this event is actually going to be live streamed on Facebook. And this really wouldn't be possible without Patio Interactive, so huge applause for Patio Interactive. They are a technology-driven design and marketing studio focusing on 360 virtual reality and augmented reality productions. Tonight they'll be showcasing a couple different interactive experiences, which you can try at the back over there by their sign. And this is the first time we're live streaming an event, and I really want to, if Charles is watching, we want to thank Charles and the whole team for making it happen.
So as someone who started a co-working company myself, I can appreciate how hard it is to build a unique community from scratch. And Neil from Project Spaces has done an amazing job. I just want to call up Neil to say a couple of words just to introduce Project Spaces.
Maybe I'll just do it from here. I've made the mistake of trapping myself. So my name is Neil. I'm one of the co-founders here at Project Spaces, and you're in our Camden Street location, one of two spots we have here in the downtown west neighborhood. How many people here have a business of some kind, any kind? Your freelance gig, startup, I don't know, maybe you make pottery, whatever it is. And how many work from home or coffee shops, primarily? Okay, cool. Most of our members were once like you guys. And we basically, what we do is we provide 24/7 workspaces for entrepreneurs, freelancers, and digital nomads of all kinds. We have drop-in style memberships. We have permanent desks, which are upstairs from here. We also have a community membership, which is $45 and gets you access to events like this and a couple of work days a month and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to wrap it up. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, grab my business card off the front desk or come say hello and enjoy the show.
I want to thank one of our sponsors is Marina here. Marina, can you stand up from Weitzman Canada? There's Marina.
Hi.
Round of applause for Marina and Weitzman. Weitzman Canada raises support for the Weitzman Institute of Science in Israel, a world-leading research center that has made a global impact fighting cancer and disease, protecting the planet, and advancing technology for the benefit of all humanity. Weitzman was just ranked 6th in the world in terms of its impact of its research on innovation. And they have a booth here today, so please go check out Weitzman. Thank you.
Ruben Cohen, huge thank you to our gold sponsor, Ruben Cohen from Coin Launch. Coin Launch manages the end-to-end logistics of companies who issue crypto assets using a secure, powerful cloud. I just created my own crypto coin over there, so if any of you want to, after tonight, you can go and create your own crypto coin right now. It takes 30 seconds. It's very cool. So thanks very much to Coin Launch for being our gold sponsor. Thank you.
Okay, I want to call Daniel Herzog. Can you come up here for a second? Okay. Another huge thank you to Mining Collocation. They are a 100% Canadian-owned and operated company which offers a hands-off approach for all clients to invest in cryptocurrency mining, hosting, and hardware acquisition. And I just had a chat with the booth with the team here today, and this is an unbelievable opportunity for sort of anyone who's interested in mining, learning about it, to get in sort of on the retail level. So I'll let Daniel share a couple words on Mining Colo.
Thank you. You said it really well yourself. With the slideshow, what?
That's the one you want? Just shoot.
Yeah, just go like that. Okay, so at Mining Collocation, we offer a full service vertical from hardware sales to your hosting. So pretty much everything is covered from hosting to security, maintenance, to even networking of your sale of your cryptocurrency. So let's go to the next slide there. So right now we're currently expanding to our second data center, increasing our power capacity to a full 2.5 megawatts, which is the equivalent of powering 2,000 homes at once. And if we were to fill these facilities with Bitcoin miners exclusively, at current market value, we could be producing around $640,000 a month in Bitcoin, and if the equivalent in Litecoin would be around $1 million a month. So we have an amazing relationship with our hardware manufacturers, so we can remove any quantity caps on any of your hardware sales, which are common across the industry. Most retailers and distributors have a quantity cap of around 3 to 10 units per order. So we remove that quantity cap on your L3 Plus miners for Litecoin and your S9 Antminer S9s for Bitcoin mining, and offer you the full capacity to get as many machines into your hands as fast as possible. And once you have your machines, we also offer a fully integrated solution for you to drop ship your machines or to send us your already owned machines to our data centers in Montreal, where we'll set you up to start mining and offer you full securities, electricity, maintenance, and support, as well as direct wallet integrations. And that setup time is around a 6-week turnaround, which is industry leading. Most of the time it takes around 3 months to set up and start mining. And at our current projections, we see an ROI of around 1 year. So the break-even point on Bitcoin is around 1 year, including our full service. So once you have your coin mined, we're also currently working on integrating liaison service with our sister company, Local Coin, where we will be providing brokerage and guaranteed sale of your coin through our ATMs and also other services. So I'm going to get you to go 2 slides down. So you can contact us at our booth over here or at any of our contact information, and I'm going to introduce the CEO of Local Coin, Tristan, to give you a little rundown on our ATMs.
Thanks for the introduction, Daniel. Thank you everyone for coming to the InvestTO event. My name is Tristan. I'm one of the co-founders of Local Coin. What we do, we're one of the largest Bitcoin ATM providers in Ontario. If you look over there, actually, we have the machine on that end. So what we provide is a local service where users can go to a machine that's at your local convenience stores, cafes, whatever it is. You can purchase Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. But I'll keep this short and sweet. We're here to announce a new program that we have. It's called Local Coin Capital. And what it is we offer a service for high volume investors to invest a minimum of $10,000 to a maximum of $10 million. And with our platform, you can actually get faster, cheaper, and better service than normal platforms. And for those of you new to the blockchain technology, we offer at our machine that I pointed out over there, we have Bitcoin at market rate, so no transaction fees. It's basically what you would get on the exchange, minus all the ID verification. And we also have a free Ethereum available too. It's at our booth. Thank you everyone for coming to the InvestTO event.
Great, thanks so much. We really appreciate being the presenting sponsor for tonight, so thank you. Okay, I'd like to introduce our moderator. I think we're making great time. So yeah, I think we're doing good. Okay. Eric Lifson is the co-founder and VP Marketing at Scrumble. He has 10 years plus directing global strategic marketing projects and is now leading the team behind Scrumble's Networks Innovation Communication Technology. Scrumble Network provides global access to a secure communication system that enables user privacy and data ownership all in one place. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Eric Lifson.
So thanks so much, guys, for coming out tonight. And I'm going to tell you a little bit briefly about the Scrumble Network. This is a really, really exciting project based right here in Toronto. And we've got a complete decentralized communication platform built on the blockchain using authentication. So what we have is a complete we hear a lot of issues right now around communication. And when you think about what are the different options you have, you might use, let's say, a telecommunications provider, let's say Bell, Rogers, AT&T, and you have to use their kind of centralized system. And it's very inefficient, there's a lot of fees, or you maybe have to use Facebook, an app, WhatsApp, etc., Telegram. These are all centralized. And there's always, you don't own your data, actually. Who owns your data? Is it Tencent for WeChat? Is it Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook? I don't know. And so what we hear a big groundswell of people who don't want to be scared of talking about what they want. They want to be able to communicate freely in a very open and kind of free way. And they want the full communication experience, something like a WeChat and a WhatsApp. So that's what we're delivering right here from Toronto, Canada. Next one. And so it comes down to security, data ownership, and global access, really providing those opportunities for any marginalized community to talk how they want. So we've been in business in Toronto for over 4 years. We have a team of 40 people. We have 30 global patents, and we already have a few 100,000 enterprise clients. However, as we've proven ourselves with the communication industry, we are now growing to a more decentralized, blockchain-focused product. And so this is secure, anonymous. You can talk with anyone in the world, and fully global, and trusted by Fortune 500 companies already. So you know that we can deliver within this year. And we already have some very strong advisors, including one special mystery advisor that we're announcing next week. And we are pre-selling something, and after 2 days, it is already a quarter full, $10 million. So please, if you'd like to learn a little bit more, please contact myself or the Scrumble Blockchain Network over here booth as well. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Scrumble. Okay. I think we're ready to get what a good looking team.
Wow. Oh my.
Very importantly, I can't leave my beer on stage. Okay, so I think we said all the thank yous, and Eric, are we ready to roll?
I think we're ready to go, guys. Are you guys ready to go?
You guys ready? Ready to go?
Yeah. Who's CEO of Token Funder. Let's give a hand for Alan. Welcome. Next up, the man with the plan, Greg Foss, director at 31Q and director at Digital Tech. LG. Cruz, CEO and founder at AIBB8. Right there, right now. Next up is Genia Mikhalchenko, member executive of Blockchain Research Institute. Give it up. And finally, last but not least, Paul Allard, president of Impact Finance and Investment. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Really excited to jump right in with you guys. So today, the main topic is cryptocurrency investing. Have you guys heard of cryptocurrency before? Seems like it's kind of a big deal right now, no? So first what we're going to do is we're going to go through each person, and they're going to just do a very short, 2-minute introduction on themselves and what they're doing. So please,
start off here.
Start off right here.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me without the mic. My name is Greg Foss. I have 25 years experience as a credit trader on Bay Street and Wall Street. and I first became involved in crypto assets and cryptocurrencies about 2 years ago. But the genesis of my desire to learn about this separate asset class started with my concern with the balance sheets of central banks and the G7 nations. So everyone's aware what fiat currencies are, right?
Show me, Lisa.
A fiat currency is based, listen and learn. That's what we're here to do, is educate, not speculate. Fiat currencies are backed by nothing. They are backed by the full faith and trust of the governing body to collect taxes and pay you back on your debts. But it is not backed by gold. And what it may be backed by is nothing more than the paper value of this. Why is that? Well, when you lend money to a G7 country, or any government, as a matter of fact, if you lend the money for 10 years, the chances the money that you're going to get back, and you will get the money back, is going to be just printed. They're just going to make more of it. There is so much debt in the world right now that it outnumbers the gross domestic product of the world by a factor of 4. Ladies and gentlemen, it is impossible that fiat currencies maintain their value. It is a mathematical certainty that fiat currencies are going to be debased, and you need to find assets which will protect and store your value. Hence my interest in cryptos. It's very important to remember, you do not want to put $100 of your $100 of investments into cryptos, but nor do you only want to put 0 in. You need to have some exposure to cryptos, because in my 25 years, this is the most exciting asymmetric return investment that I've been exposed to. Somewhere between 3% and 10% of your investment portfolio should be allocated to cryptos. I'm partial to the big 3, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, and I refer to them as digital gold for Bitcoin, digital copper for Ethereum, and digital silver for Litecoin. I'd be happy to go into the details in the future, or sorry, in this talk. I will leave you with this. I have a small degree of confidence that Bitcoin will someday reach $1 million a coin. Now I say small. Greater than 0, but less than 10%. Doesn't matter. If I gave you a 90% probability that Bitcoin would be worth 0, and you gave me a 10% probability it would be worth $1 million, you statistically inclined people out there would say, hey, Foss, that means it should be trading at $100,000 today. And I could not look you in the eye and tell you you'd be wrong. Buy some and own some, because your kids and your kids' kids are going to need a hedge to this piece of shit. Okay?
Okay. Very well said. Thank you.
All right, I'm up next.
How do you follow that? That's a good question.
I have had so many conversations like that over the last few years. Okay, so my name's Alan Wunshaw. I'm CEO of Token Funder. I'll get into that in a minute. I've also had a long financial career. My last corporate gig was as a vice president at Scotiabank. It's a place where I spent a lot of time in the capital markets area, risk. This is what money is part of. It's part of the of risk and risk management. We just got educated in a couple of really good ways here in terms of what fiat is and what crypto is. Just in terms of my trajectory here, I started off when I left Scotiabank. I went straight into a space that was so exciting to me when I saw Ethereum launch in Canada. So we had Ethereum here. The native digital token Ether is something that you really do want to know about. It's that currency that runs smart contracts, and you have to use it in order to basically process things in this world computer called Ethereum. So when we talk about getting educated, you really want to understand some of these protocols and understand some of this new technology. So if you're slightly technology oriented, I recommend you get more technology oriented, because that way you'll understand what the pros and cons are of some of these portfolios and whether there is a store of value for you or not, and what the future is. So started Blockchain Canada a couple of years ago when Ethereum, the project, left for Switzerland. We were all pretty dismayed in terms of something so groundbreaking having kind of put roots over in Switzerland and built its foundation there. So that was the catalyst. We wanted to make sure that a lot of people got educated, and so we've been running Blockchain Canada meetups for a couple of years. I've taken a slight hiatus myself in the last few months because I started Token Funder. I have the honor, so to speak, that I started the first discussions with the Ontario Securities Commission, the regulators here in Ontario, when and before the Launchpad started. So I was at the ground floor with them, working through where this space is going in a regulated way, and in a understanding what regulatory concerns are, and really at the heart of you look at the trajectory. It was a year-long discussion in terms of where we were going to go, and Token Funders, the result today, a regulated security token offering in the marketplace because of the extensive kind of new knowledge and understanding that the regulators have. So they really understand this space. Don't let anyone tell you that they don't understand it. They also have innovation and, you get it, investor protection mandates. So there's this desire to help us all innovate. Absolutely, that's what the OSC Launchpad is, and it's not a commercial for them, but there's some really very talented people there that are also interested in investor protections, because around the world we've seen billions of dollars created out of thin air outside of the top three that you just heard about, the more stable ones, so to speak. Forget stable for a second if you look at the last couple of months, but the top three that you probably all know and love. There's been billions of dollars put into projects with tokens made out of thin air, basically to projects that are very detrimental to investors. Investor protections don't exist. You look at, we'll go into some of your questions perhaps later, but in terms of my wrapping up my intro, and I'm getting, and I was told I had 5 minutes, so I went with the 5 minute.
2 minutes.
Here's the thing. When you start to invest, and this, I think y'all have to understand that this is an underlying context of not being investment advice. If we started off with education, that's the perspective here. There's a lot of terms and conditions around these ICOs and tokens, token launches every single day that are not in your favor, but some of them are really good projects. So some of them you may want to back. Anyway, we'll get into a lot of that. Token Funder decided to go security route directly for the investor protection benefits and for the basis of and then for the desire of actually working and building a company that is in Canada. Many times over, we could have also decided to leave for Switzerland, and other companies have. We chose to stay here. We chose to build here because we believe in Canada, and hopefully you all will also get some new education here tonight and understand where this whole space is going to go. So with that, I'll wrap my intro.
Thank you so much. Very juicy information right there. Let's try and keep it to a 2 minute minimum, okay? Thank you very much.
Hey, my name is Kelge DeCruz. I'm the CEO and founder of Abe. I started it for a couple of reasons. One is what Greg mentioned with the monetary system. Two is Alan doing the securitized tokens. We are heading in that direction. People need to put their money in a secure sort of environment where they don't lose it overnight. And three is a lot of the people getting into this sector right now don't know a lot about it. There's a lot of risks and a lot of scams, a lot of pump and dumps that you should be aware of. One of the reasons why I created ABE was basically to help educate people on these sort of things. Teach them terminology, teach them the trading techniques if that's what they want to do. Teach them how to build their portfolio. Like Greg said, it's not for us. It's probably the next generation or the generation after that, where it becomes mainstream. You know, sure, you might get rich per se in the next overnight, betting on a coin. But the reality is you're taking someone else's money. Look at Bitcoin, jumped up to 20 grand. Everyone bought high, now they're stuck with it. And the people that bought high are the regular investors who weren't in this space 6 months ago. You know, so that's where my passion comes from, helping people learn about it and make educated decisions through my platform, which is not yet released, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Jenya Mikhalchenko. I'm the Member Services Executive at the Blockchain Research Institute. So my journey in crypto started around 2013. I bought my first Bitcoin and Litecoin during the last hype cycle in December 2013. That was kind of the gateway drug, and I lived through the whole trough of disillusionment in 2014 and 2015. And during that time, I spent about 5 years working in the startup space. Prior to that, and just up until recently. About a year ago, I decided to move full-time into the space. So like I said, I'm the Member Services Executive at the BRI. We're a think tank that's based here in Toronto. We're funded by multiple levels of the government, several large corporations, and a lot of blockchain startups. And what we're doing is we're researching the use cases, implementation challenges, and opportunities in the crypto and blockchain space. I also run a small kind of prop family and friends fund on the side with a not so insignificant amount of money. And so from the investment side, I've had quite the learning curve over the last, let's say, 6 months or so. And I'll probably share some of those insights throughout the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Allard. I'm from Impact Finance, and I've been in the tech world for 20 years. So I started some companies, and I raised cash through these years. And I got fascinated by the financial economy, and especially the monetary creation of how you create money. So what Greg was saying was exactly it. And especially the complementary currency movement that exists for over 50 years. And we have 5,000 complementary currency out there with paper. But one thing also struck me when I digged into what the financial economy was all about is that there's humongous amount of money created by debt that is not available for a real economy. And as an entrepreneur, that bugs me. So I created that with a bunch of friends, Impact Finance, which the idea was to attract capital into the real economy, but the social impact economy, which is a triple bottom line economy. And we thought that using currency and building their currency built on the blockchain was a tremendous opportunity to reward and attract people in spending into companies that were trying to solve environment or social issues, and creating that value within this currency, the impact coin. So we created the impact coin, and we early on in the project we met Alan and we discussed a few avenues, and we decided to stick around in Canada. We approached the AMF and the OSC, and we were the first legalized or green-lighted cryptocurrency ICO in Canada in September 2017. And today we're launching our product in June. It's a wallet that will give you access to a prepaid debit card, but with this wallet, you'll have access to a marketplace of qualified social impact merchant. And when you spend with dollars or with your credit card or with a wallet within these qualified social impact enterprises, you'll win a money cash back, an impact coin, which is a combination of a real currency but a loyalty program that you'll be able to spend afterwards, not only locally and nationally, but worldwide. So that's the project we're all about, trying to change the world. It's a fantastic, fantastic timing. We think that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we couldn't even think of a project of that. Today it's the time time is right.
Thanks so much, guys. So the purpose of this panel discussion is really to have a bit of a discussion and learn a little bit more and educate about investing in blockchain. So how many people here, show of hands, have ever invested in blockchain already? Wow. How many people have invested in Bitcoin? How many people are interested in investing but are wanting to learn more and a little skeptical? Okay, so there's a pretty mixed group here, and I think there's a great opportunity with great panels right here, and we're going to ask a few quick fire questions. So 2-minute maximum for each question, and you never know who's going to get the first question. So the first one is going to be Jenya.
Yes.
So what allocation, both as a minimum and maximum, do you think a person should have in crypto investments?
As a percentage of their entire portfolio? So to Greg's point, definitely non-zero. It depends on your risk tolerance. I'll full disclosure, all my savings and investments are in crypto, but I'm a little bit crazy and a bit of a maximalist, so full disclosure, none of this is investment advice. But you need to really assess what your risk tolerance is, and that also goes along with which coins you're investing in. Like the blue chips, as Greg mentioned, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, those are no-brainers. If you don't have a lot of tolerance for risk, that's a pretty easy combo to go with. You can split your entire portfolio amongst the three. But if you want to go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole, look in the top 10 on CoinMarketCap. A little further, go down the top 25. But I'd say on average, do 5 to 10%, especially for the average age of this room. You should be making risky investments. This is the time in your lives to do that sort of thing. So 5 to 10%.
I'm assuming a bit of a different end of the spectrum. Greg, what's your? Paul. No, sorry. Alan. Okay.
That's me.
Yes, Alan. What's your thoughts on this? What percentage should you allocate for crypto?
I'm going to echo the same comments. And here's what let's take the principles we already have in place today. So as we onboard investors into our token, we have to do KYC suitability checks. So this is a part of our marketplace today that anyone that offers an investment product has to understand your risk profile. As it happens, if you start to invest in crypto on your own, which we do, you essentially have to do your own suitability. So you have to assess your own risk because there's no one out there saying, oh, here's the limit that you have for your crypto, except if you're working with someone that has to do the KYC. So it's interesting. This is the first part of the conversation, or maybe the second, in terms of taking your investment into your own hands here. I think, Greg, you started that.
What's KYC?
KYC is know your client. So all financial institutions, all regulated financial institutions, thank you for the question because it helps to clarify this. They have to know their client before they sell you a product, an investment product, a financial instrument. These are essentially being treated as financial instruments, but there isn't typically someone at a digital exchange saying to you, we have to know your risk appetite. This is essentially your decision to make. So look, there's an entire consensus of people out there saying you should be into crypto. I'm into crypto. And there's a large group that would say that it's small, few percentage. Some go as high as 10. It's got to be individual risk tolerance at the end of the day for what you're comfortable with. And frankly, I know people that are 100% in as well. So you really this is coming back to you, the audience, and you, the decision maker. Because you're typically in this space today, you're not going to a bank saying, help me figure out my asset allocation in crypto, right? This is now decisions that you're making.
Greg,
yes.
Same question. How much?
So I did say 3 to 10%. I want to stress that it should not be zero. You're in fact taking more risk by owning no crypto than you are by owning a few percent. Now you guys need to understand what an asymmetric return distribution is. Okay? It's a thin tail. But think of Bitcoin as being bounded at 0. You could lose all your money, but no one's going to take more money from you than you invested. So it's bounded. But it's asymmetric on the other tail, in that I believe strongly it could go to $1 million. I know people that think it could go to $10 million. The likely outcome? I think 100,000 is a chip shot, but that's just me, okay? I will tell you, once again, do your probability analysis. Perhaps a better way of asking this question is, how much equities do you own? If you own 100% of your invested portfolio in equities, you should probably have a few percentage allocated to cryptos. But if you own nothing in any risk asset, and your biggest risk is your mortgage or you're paying your monthly rent, then make sure you don't put anything in that you cannot afford to lose. Okay? Make sure you are not betting with anything but found money. Once again, this thing called a fiat currency has lost in the last 100 years, it has lost 96% of its value. Why? Due to inflation and printing money. You need to have exposure to assets that are not going to be debased. That could include gold, that could include equities, and it's my firm opinion that that has to include some crypto assets. You decide. It cannot be 0.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Several blockchain companies have recently gone public, like Hive, BTL, Crypto Global. Do you think that trend will continue, Kalji?
I absolutely do. There's a few reasons for that. The first reason is ICOs are becoming more regulated. The second reason is it's more, when I say regulated in terms of the securities aspect of it, the OSC, whatever, targeting you and saying, looking into your books, it's a lot easier from my perspective, from what I see. Going the public route is a lot easier. Now you've got to do your due diligence to see what's behind that company, what technology is behind there. Is it just a phantom company that has blockchain in their name and it's getting some attention? And I would say, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah.
Perfect. And Paul, what's your thoughts on this subject?
Well, I had an interesting conversation with an investor in New York who's in crypto, and he was telling me we don't know if the value of a company with an asset, which is a cryptocurrency or a crypto token, where the value will prevail. So at the end, I don't know. You need to understand more of the company that you're looking at, and will the value be created in the share, owning the shares of the company, or in owning the token that they're supporting and developing? That's a real question, and it struck me like, yeah, you're right. And he said to me, like, because we're raising cash and we're selling equity, as we talked today. He was telling me, yeah, but why not give the opportunity to your early investors to switch from canceling the equity to going to the currency, because maybe that's where the value will be reflected. And that's so I don't know. I think it's each project is very. You need to look at each project and how the value is created. Is it created within the currency or within the shares of the company?
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll just add, because we are definitely seeing, I'm speaking to a lot of investment bankers out there, we're definitely seeing this year a lot of public companies coming on stream. But just think back, I'm looking at the audience actually, many of you probably don't recall the explosion of companies that took place in the first .com boom. We're very much in the same space right now. We're having an explosion of new companies, new ideas, new projects. Not all of them will survive, but many of them will go public, and I know for a fact that we're going to see dozens more go public this year.
Thank you. And follow up for Alan. So let's talk a little bit more about regulation, the most exciting topic in the entire world. So what do you perceive will be the tax consequences of crypto? How will the CRA or other tax jurisdictions be able to track funds and prevent anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism financing?
That's a huge question. You started off with taxes, and then you went into AML, so and CTF. So let's first talk about taxes. And again, this is not tax advice. I'm a CPA, so I can now say this is not CPA kind of tax advice. Okay, just to be clear. But we have clarity today. If you buy and sell a crypto asset such as Bitcoin, Ether, Litecoin, Dash, Monero, others, if you buy and sell this, it's like buying a security or a property. So capital gains applies. So you will, CRA is expecting anyone that's trading in cryptos to pay capital gains tax. Then there are capital gains exemptions on that sort of thing. Now, there are other rules that if you become a trader and that's your business, then you could be taxed as income. So you need your own personal advice from a financial expert as to whether you fall into the income category, because income taxes are higher than capital gains taxes. So think about that. And so that we have clarity around this. Now, where people would like to see this is, as many other countries are considering, is that this cryptocurrency, quote unquote, we treat it like a currency. Whereas, if I buy and sell US dollars, I'm not getting capital gains as a Canadian. So this is not the place we're in. Our tax laws are pretty clear that as a property. Now, okay, so I've spent a lot of time with blockchain folks, and also spent a lot of time with the likes of authorities that look after, or that are interested in pursuing activities that aren't on the up and up, let's say. So AML, terrorism financing is obviously a big concern. There's a misconception out there that Bitcoin is actually anonymous. So if you believe that it's anonymous, I'm here to tell you it's not. It's something called pseudonymous. Your crypto address, or your Bitcoin address in that case, does kind of shield you from directly being associated with the account, but as soon as you go into an on and off ramp at a digital exchange such as CoinSquare, Quadriga, Kraken, Poloniex, GDAX, and others, they already know who you are because you're going to do some KYC, so you'll be attached to that Bitcoin address typically. There are new protocols for tokens such as Zcash, Monero, that are bringing privacy into this to kind of avoid this, but the AML folks at banks that I've spoken to are really getting up to speed on this, and so are the government folks that are looking after kind of criminal activity, and the police have attended many blockchain events. They get this. They can track Bitcoin transactions, even when they pass through tumblers. And when they pass through ring signatures, these technologies designed to kind of give you some anonymity, don't buy it, because you're not anonymous in the crypto space.
Thanks so much. So let's talk about more kind of the retail investor right now. Someone who's interested, you're told, let's look at maybe 5 or 10% of our current amount of what we're investing, our portfolio. Let's think about that. The question is, for someone who's kind of curious about blockchain, what are some, how do you think retail investors can participate in ICOs, and what are some of the risks, Greg?
It's a great question. Thank you for that. And I will say this. Selfishly, I'm involved in a company called 3IQ. 3IQ is Canada's first multi-asset crypto manager, or multi-crypto asset manager rather, that has been granted approval by the Ontario Securities Commission. My goal has always been to make it simple for people to get exposure to this asset that I believe so passionately in. Our goal is to get a TSX, Toronto Stock Exchange, listed closed-end fund for the top 3 cryptos that you already know I've talked about: Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. It would be as simple as you going to your broker and saying, I want 3% Bitcoin, 3% Litecoin, and 3% Ethereum. And for a guy with $100,000, you do the math, that's 3,000, 3,000, and 3,000. When it gets above 25% of your portfolio, you sell some. How do you do that? You don't worry about going to an exchange. You call up your broker and you say, dude, I made a great investment, but I need to manage my risk. I'm taking some and I'm selling it. How does it happen? It's like selling a stock on the Toronto Stock Exchange. That is what 3IQ wants to bring to the masses. Now, I love you guys for being young because you're way smarter than me. But at the end of the day, you don't have more money than people my age. And people my age are used to dealing with a broker. I know that's not your standard way of investing, but most of the money, ladies and gentlemen, in the world today is managed by professionals or managed by brokers. We want to bring a tool to the investment community, whether you're retail or institutional, that will allow you to call up your broker and say, I need 10% overall of my whole portfolio in cryptos, and guess what? I'm a 10 millionaire, so that means I need $1 million. Well, go and try and buy $1 million on any one of these exchanges. Not that easy, okay? So cryptos are 8 years old. Bitcoin's 8 years old, Ethereum's 2 years old. We're going to see massive change coming forward. But my goal would be to make it as easy as buying shares of the Royal Bank. Why? Because you should own shares of the Royal Bank. And yes, you should probably own some crypto as well. You can do both. You can suck and blow at the same time. Okay? Very simple.
Well said. Thank you.
It's a trader's expression.
Okay, great. On to more sucking and blowing. So, how do you think retail investors can participate in ICOs, and what are some of the risks? Genia.
Okay, so the risks are, the risks, it's just a long laundry list. Starting from, did you do your due diligence on the team? Is the product legit? Are the founding team members legit? Have they shipped a product? Is there product market fit? Is there an addressable market for this product? Do they have a prototype? Is there a proof of concept? Like, the list of checkboxes is really damn long.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is there a standardized location where you can find that kind of information? Or is it at your discretion?
Generally speaking, there's a few relatively okay sources. Smith & Crown is a website that does a lot of good ICO analysis. There's coinmetrics.io. There's a few good resources that you can just simply Google. They usually come up near the top 5 or 10. But the real metrics you should be looking at are who the hell are these people that are building this, and what qualifications do they have to do this. Look at how the tokens are being allocated. If the founding team is keeping more than 50%, it's probably a scam. Just like looking at the breadth and depth of the project and understanding what it is that they're building. It's like looking at a startup and assessing its viability. Like there's nothing different between that and investing into an ICO, because essentially at the end of the day, what they're building is a product, and it's usually going to be a mobile product, and it's going to be there's going to be a lot of heavy tech behind it. So this is typically the same way that people evaluate startups.
And how do you suggest that retail investors get involved in ICOs?
I would say right now probably don't. Honestly, that's my very harsh opinion is don't. Unless you have someone in your network that has already done so, who's gone through the process, understands what it's like to buy some crypto, put it in a wallet, send that crypto to another address, claim your tokens from MetaMask or by Ether Wallet or whatever. I would suggest seeking help from someone that's already gone through the ringer, understands the risks, understands the processes, and is somewhat well versed.
Okay, great. This is a toss-up question. So, what are other or less common ways to invest in blockchain? Not through an exchange, not through
Knowing companies, well, friends who are doing a startup, and you trust them, and they, you know the technology is good at what they're trying to do. I would say that's one of the ways, just knowing the person who's behind it.
You guys are familiar with mining? One of the things that's taking place in Canada is numerous global companies are coming to Canada to mine cryptos, Bitcoin in particular. You may have heard of Hive Technologies or Hut 8. These are derivatives of the Bitcoin ecosystem, but you can buy their shares publicly on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Should that be included in your equity portfolio or your crypto portfolio? And your risk metrics therein. I'll leave that up to you. But a blockchain company, you need to differentiate between who is really a blockchain company and who's an iced tea company, which you may have heard of, called Long Island Tea. They put blockchain in their name so their stock price would go up. So I would just say criminals gravitate to the financial markets because it's the easiest place to rip people's faces off. Just be careful. You're not going to just lose potentially money in the equity markets or the ICO markets. A security or an investment needs to be peeled down layer by layer, okay? Don't just invest in a company because it's XYZ blockchain. Chances are they just changed their name and a pump and dump scheme follows.
Thank you. So we're going to have one more question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience members. So the last question is, looking at the growing ecosystem here in Canada, what are some incentives to actually do an ICO in Canada? You hear every, and I can speak to this, from experience, but you hear about people going to, Switzerland or, the Cayman or anywhere, and what is the incentive to do in Canada? Because you're dealing with a ton of tax, you're dealing with a ton of regulations, and you're dealing with a few other interesting things. So please.
Take it. The incentive is that you actually want to live in the country and actually want to build and support the country. That's the sort of starting point here. If you want to talk incentives, there are great incentives to leave the country, go to some other. What had happened in 2017 was the following. So even if you're a Canadian, you could go to another country like Switzerland or Gibraltar or Barbados and launch a coin there and take money from anyone in the world and essentially open it up, and you and I, and we could all send our ether to that project. No KYC, no investor protections. So you're basically taking legal risk. And this is, don't do ICOs without having some real strong legal advice, by the way. But your business is taking serious legal risk by leaving and doing that, because ultimately, when the SEC, which they are doing, sends the hundreds of letters that they've done in the last month, many of these projects are going to be deemed securities, and the founders of these projects are going to be held to account. Because what the incentive is to go elsewhere is to not essentially be accountable to anybody. So take some money, take some crypto, and put the terms out there. And the terms are very clear. When you went to Tezos, when you went to Bancorp, you were contributing to a fundraiser, and you had no rights in the company. The terms are super clear. If that's what you want to get yourself into, that's what the projects did, and they're building these really new cool protocols, and you want to support that, well, great. But now, if you want, and I'm taking this because now we're back in the realm of the investor world, because we've got public blockchain companies that you can get into, and you can't actually get into as many regulated token offerings. Well, we're the only one in the country right now that is a regulated token offering, a token funder. But it was a hard road. It took a year to get what we got. And that's not for the faint of heart, and a lot of legal. And because we want to look after the investors at the end of the day, and frankly, I wanted to be able to sleep at night, that when people invested in the project, they knew, they actually had someone that was accountable.
So you're a Canadian, right?
Absolutely.
But let's say someone who is kind of agnostic to any location.
Yeah.
Why would anybody come to Canada to do it?
Why would anybody come to
Or
Canada
to do this
Yeah.
kind of activity
Well.
in Canada?
I'll take the opposite approach. So in 2017, there were at least 3 gigantic ICOs that left Toronto and went to either Cayman, Barbados, or elsewhere, or the Bahamas. And that's money that will never be repatriated or will ever touch the soil. It will never be taxed here. Obviously, it's for regulatory, tax, and legal arbitrage. We get it. But the reason they left, like part of the reason, yes, because they don't want to be accountable to certain regulators or whatever. But
they didn't want to issue securities.
But the bigger kind of thing that's going on here at a high level is that entrepreneurs don't actually wait for regulation to catch up to where they're at. Like the pace of innovation has far outgrown the pace of regulation, and that's why companies are leaving. And quite frankly, there's no incentive to stay in Canada unless you want to go down a very specific path and follow the regulators and kind of toe the line that way, which is fine. Like there's room for those people as well, but there's a lot of companies like Kin, like Aon, like Polymath, like soon to be Shift. Shout out to Shift. They all left, and there's a lot of reasons, and it's not just because they don't want to be beholden, but because there's other opportunities elsewhere that will accelerate the pace of what they're trying to do, that will help bring their markets to product faster, regardless of regulatory arbitrage or anything else.
And they also don't have 1 year to figure out all the regulatory and legal stuff.
It was faster to get the cash. These are absolutely short-term
That's an entrepreneurial mindset.
This is faster to cash.
And fight!
Fast to market.
fast to market, exactly.
I've been talking here. The regulations in Canada are kind of like this. I'm the founder of Coin Lunch. Imagine you bought a Beanie Baby, right? It was a big thing back in the 90s. It's this little doll, and you bought it for $1. Now let's assume that Beanie Baby is now worth $100 because someone somewhere thinks it's worth $100. The Canadian regulations, which don't actually exist, there's no actual clear guidelines whatsoever here, would basically tell you that trade between those two people, that $100 Beanie Baby, is now a security and therefore mandated and governed by the Ontario Securities Commission. Now that Beanie Baby very well might be a security, but it probably isn't. But the general consensus for running a cryptocurrency in Canada is they're all illegal until you prove otherwise. So the challenge you have here in Canada, running an ICO or running a regulated weather with no regulations, is it's like saying, hey, let's invite a cop into the back seat, and every time you go over to the speed limit, I'm going to give you a ticket. And now the question I ask is that actually how you run an emerging business?
Speed limit.
Yeah, but they don't tell you what. Yeah, they don't tell you what the speed limit is. There's no speed limit. I'm cruising along and suddenly I'm in a 50, but there's no sign telling me in a 50, and I'm paying a stunt driving fee or something, whatever they call it. So the Canadian market is. We all want to operate here, without question, but we can't. It's just a crazy place right now. The government, people tell you the OSC is friendly towards crypto. I don't know.
Definitely not.
Just a very quick comment and a bit of a counter-argument to what Alan is saying. In the recent weeks, I met with recruiters from the UK, from Hong Kong, from Singapore. We churn Solidity developers in Toronto through block gigs and many other places. 70% of them are leaving.
Yeah, for sure. More than that.
I'm not talking about chasing ICOs. I'm talking about chasing triple income and less taxes.
I don't think it's a counter-argument at all. I think
less taxes than what they pay.
It's where the opportunity is. I don't think it's a counter-argument at all. I think the counter-argument is in a different zone. Right.
Canada's got a brain drain, and it's the lack of guidance, lack of governance, lack of any kind of regulation. We want to be here.
It's not that the regulations are bad. They're not there.
No, I think the regulations actually exist pretty clearly. So if anyone sort of says there's no regulation, that's actually not the case. That's actually not the case. But we can take that line. We can take that offline.
Let's take that offline. Okay, great. So we have a from the live chat. We have Magameet asking one question. So I'm going to throw this at Greg. Are you ready for this? Okay, what is the future of Ripple?
I'm not going to comment. Okay, I'm focused on the top three, and I will just tell you that there's people that love Ripple. There's people. It was to me though, right? Was it to me or
he was commenting.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay. So basically, look. What is Ripple? Ripple, depending on who you believe could solve all the foreign exchange problems of every single Canadian or every single global financial institution in the world. Or I heard the comment, it's crippled. Okay? I do not know, but I will just tell you that people love it primarily for one reason, because it trades at $1.14. Okay? And there's 35 trillion of them. Don't confuse the price of a trade with the amount outstanding. Bitcoin is worth $400 billion. Ripple at one point was worth more than Bitcoin. That's where I have a problem. Whether Ripple is a good investment right now or not is up to you. But when it was worth more than Bitcoin, at approximately $3.52, you should not have owned it. And the people that did now own it at $1.14. Okay? Always compare it to the other ones out there. By a show of hands, how large is the cryptocurrency market in total? Is it over $1 trillion US dollars? Put your hand up. Or under $1 trillion US dollars? Correct. It's about $500 billion. And ask you the other question. What is the total value of all financial assets, not including real estate, in the world today? Including government debt, corporate debt, and equities, and gold. Is it over 100 trillion or under 100 trillion? Over 100 trillion, put your hand up. Is it over 200 trillion? Keep your hands up. Is it over 300 trillion? Keep your hands up. Is it over 400 trillion? Anyone with their hands up has been wrong since it's been over 300 trillion. The point is this. Guys, listen. Cryptos, listen, this is fucking important, okay? Cryptos are $500 billion divided by 300 trillion. They don't fucking matter. They're just like a little bit of like, I don't care. They're less valuable than Apple. Put it in perspective. Own it in perspective of the risk. And when Ripple gets to be more valuable than the reserve currency of crypto called Bitcoin, you should not be owning it. Do your research, do your analysis, and know the relative value of things out there. $300 trillion, ladies and gentlemen. If crypto gets 10% of that market, that's 30 trillion. And if Bitcoin keeps 30% of that, holy fuck, that's 10 trillion. 10 trillion divided by 21 million, that's $500,000 a Bitcoin. Is it going to happen? The answer is it's not a 0% probability. Do your math and do your risk analysis appropriately.
Thank you. Okay.
Woo! Round of applause for that.
So we're going to open up the floor for another question. Who wants to take a stab right now?
Well, I don't know whether it's well, it's not really an open question. I just wanted to actually hear more about the Blockchain Foundation Institute and what exactly is involved in what like your projects are. Are they exclusively on blockchain or actually any? I don't remember the term, but I mean like you do something with like DAG and some other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give a quick 2-minute primer. So we have 70 projects running across roughly 10 different verticals. Everything from finance, which has obviously the most amount of projects for very obvious reasons. There's 15 projects in finance. Everything from commercial banking to trade finance, tokenization of assets. We're doing projects in healthcare, in supply chain, and governance. Alan is actually running one of our projects, or a few of them, if I'm not mistaken. So the projects themselves serve as kind of there's two different categories. One is a big idea white paper, which is usually 40 to 50 pages of kind of like here's an industry, here's a full breakdown, here are the implications, here's where blockchain can come in and disrupt and reinvent and yada yada. And then we have a second category of projects which are called lighthouse case studies, which are specific use cases that are being implemented by companies currently right now. So I've referenced this frequently, but it's a very important example. We did a project that was a combination of Hyperledger and Walmart. So Walmart has an issue with tracking the provenance and the safety of pork in China. There's a lot of food associated risks, and there's recalls, and pork gets contaminated. And one of the things they wanted to do was to eliminate the risk of that. So they used Hyperledger, which is IBM's proprietary blockchain, to help track that. And so we have a whole project on that. We're exploring as far and wide use cases as possible. The current list is 70, like I said, but the more members of the Institute, the more money we have to fund research, and inevitably the list of research gets longer. Just to add, there's 3 different categories of members in the Institute. One is we have government organizations, so everyone from the City of Toronto to the province to the feds to the Bank of Canada are all members. And then we have corporates, so CIBC, FedEx, Pepsi, IBM, SAP, Accenture. And then the third category is blockchain startups, and they range from digital wallets to companies doing KYC to interoperability networks.
I have a question. How many people have seen the blockchain in action? Okay, so do you know where to go to see that? Do you have a recommendation?
Well, I mean, you're talking about physically or codes?
Actually, physically, and here's, it was a bit of a loaded question. I'm a mechanical engineer by practice, okay? I love seeing things visually. For those who are not aware of a website called tradeblock.com, I would love everybody to go there and see the blockchain in action, okay? Tradeblock.com. You can go onto a screen called Live Rates, and you will see each hash that goes into a transaction that takes place globally for Bitcoin. It's pretty neat because you'll see a $2,000 transaction go across with about a hash chain that long of alphanumeric. And then you'll see a $20, and then you'll see a $4 million transaction. And these things are flying across, and then all of a sudden you'll see the block, and you'll see 10 minutes ago the block got printed, and it was mined by Antpool. And then the next one, the miner was unknown. And how many minutes? Approximately 10 minutes in between the two of them. And you're like, Jesus Christ, and I put my money into this fucking thing. And this is blockchain that goes around the world. Every transaction goes around the world and is immutable, decentralized ledger that's confirmed by 51% of the people operating in this blockchain. Guys, whether or not you buy Bitcoin or not, understand what the blockchain is and how it is going to change your lives. Because Medicare fraud is going to be a thing of the past. And all this crap about, I'm going to go on Silk Road and buy drugs, you know what? Bitcoin is the most traceable fucking currency there is out there. You know what gets used in money laundering? The US friggin' dollar. Why? Because it is not traceable. The blockchain is an immutable, it's trustworthy, peer-to-peer. You own it, you see it in action, and it's 8 years old. It's the internet, the second coming of the internet. And you can tell me, I'm going to leave this world, or Canada, I'm going to go somewhere else, or you can invest in it in Canada and live in a beautiful country.
Praise the Lord, hallelujah. So, shout out to the live stream. We have a question from Sky, and I'm going to go to Paul on this one. So, what's your advice for students wanting to invest? How do they remain disciplined on how much to invest?
Once again, I'm not a financial advisor, but one thing I do agree with what Greg just said is that blockchain will change a lot of stuff. And as a student, I would definitely look and try to put my nose into it and look under the hood. So I tend to disagree in the fact that look at it an investment. I'm not that type of profile, and I wouldn't do that. But I would look and try to choose a few projects in the areas I'm familiar with, and try to find one or two projects I do understand, where I agree with what he said, and try to understand these projects and who's backing them, and try to get involved in a way that you sense that you will learn. And if it is about buying a few of these tokens, do it. But in a perspective of understanding what it will change, and it will change a lot of aspects of your society. It will change not only investment, which is unfortunately not very interesting from my aspect. I think it's all the rest is super interesting of what the blockchain can do, and the result is that they create asset that is worth something. Yeah, but for a student, get involved in something you understand. Get your hands dirty, and if it means to put $100 or $200, do it, and follow the project and get to understand how it works and how it will disrupt some piece of the society.
Thank you. So we're gonna cap it off with 3 more questions, guys. Actually, make that 5 more questions, and let's start right here.
Sure. So my question's for Alan, but it's open to anyone. So what are your thoughts about big banks on one hand, waiting for custodial services to really invest in the space, and on the other hand, shutting down accounts for people who are investing in crypto and blocking credit cards from being able to purchase crypto? It seems like they want the cake and they're trying to do one thing with the left while the other hand is trying to do something else. So,
what are my thoughts around the whole impact on the financial sector?
Well, just kind of.
This is a really complex situation, but you can kind of simplify it to one dimension here, that this new asset class, and whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's any one of these, it really could become, and this is validated by the International Monetary Fund and central bankers around the world, could become and is potentially a competitive monetary system. So the banks live in our current monetary system, but the banks, in as much as I'm not in a bank today. I'm actually innovating in the blockchain space for the very reason that I think it's really exciting and really innovative, and I think that this is really groundbreaking. But I understand the context we live in today, in that the banks are essentially required to carry out a lot of policy measures of our existing government. So, AML comes from government. These aren't the banks making these rules. Frankly, we make the rules, and our governments make the rules under which our financial services institutions are operating today. I think, though, that there's no question about it. It's interesting when you realize that this is a risk game, and the government is expecting the banks to kind of manage our monetary system, whereas there's many of us that want to take our financial kind of well-being and our financial future into our own hands. So we're in this kind of transition phase right now, where we say, let those crypto companies open up bank accounts, because and by the way, I mean, they have to be doing legal things, but they should be allowed to open up bank accounts. And there are situations where, we saw this as Blockchain Canada, companies coming to us all the time saying, we can't seem to open up bank accounts to work in because the banks are deeming us too risky to be associated with. But that's the government telling the banks to manage risk. So it's not necessarily just the banks. So it's important to understand that entire context, but I would say that our government has to take and I actually know some folks in the government that get this, and they are looking at how to kind of transition us to this new world. But make no mistake about it. I mean, this is not going to be clean, because and I'll give you a little more context around this. There have been central banks that have considered how they might, and I'm not talking about Canada. I'm actually going to leave Canada out of it because I might know a couple of things. But other governments have said that they were going to implement their own cryptocurrency, and then they realized the impact that it would have on the retail banking sector. And so many of, for example, Toronto and other financial centers, employ really, employ great numbers of people today. And business cases for blockchain say that banks could reduce their infrastructures by billions and billions of dollars. This is going to have social and economic impacts, this blockchain technology. So the governments are trying to manage it. The banks are in it. I happen to be on that side, or on that part of the equation that says banks should still be somehow allowed to open up banking facilities for innovative companies that just happen to be in the crypto space. Of course, again, back to not doing anything illegal, looking after investors in whatever the right way. But your question is the question of the day, because we know that blockchain technology could disrupt our financial services sector. Our financial services sector today employs a vast number of people, so the banks are concerned about having that kind of disruption happen all at once. No, the governments are. And the banks certainly are looking after their self-interests.
Bingo.
And so many of us that have our own wallets realize we don't have that deposit of a Bitcoin or an Ether or whatever. We don't have that deposit in a bank anymore. So what's this world going to look like when I've got my hardware wallet, and that's where I have store of value apparently now. This is exactly kind of the tension that we're in. It's the question of our day.
So I'm going to jump in real quick. So 3 big things happened exactly on this point this week. So a company called Circle acquired Poloniex, which is one of the biggest exchanges in the crypto space, for $400 million. It was the biggest M&A in the space ever, period. Circle is a financial services company. They are funded by Goldman Sachs. So they're not that hostile to this sort of thing. Maybe they're not directly saying, hey, we approve this, but banks, let's be honest, are complicated, very compartmentalized institutions, and certain parts of banks operate independent of the larger ethos. That's one. Number 2, a company called DCG, which is a digital currency group. They're one of the biggest venture firms in the space. They've invested in every goddamn company we know of. Recently, yesterday, bought a $100 million stake in an organization called Silvergate. They're the only bank in the States that has been funding and banking blockchain companies over the last 3-4 years. That is a huge stamp of approval. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. They own a fucking bank now, right? They can bank whoever they want. Like, no startup has to get denied for banking services. And the third thing I'll say is the High Court in Israel has deemed it illegal to not offer banking services to Israeli companies that are in the crypto and blockchain space. And this just happened yesterday. So disregard what you hear about banks are not friendly and this and that and da-da-da. On the ground, it actually looks a lot different. And the truth is, where there's money to be made, like, why wouldn't these banks be involved, and why would you want to stay from innovation?
I just add one more thing. So you'll see soon that the banks, having realized that there's change afoot, there's a whole identity space that they're going to start to compete on. So there's this consortium of banks that got together with SecureKey. I don't believe the service is alive yet, but they're going to be providing digital identity through this new sort of wallet service, because they realize that they have an asset, namely everything they know about you and your credit worthiness, that they believe they can sell in this blockchain space. So I think stay tuned. Even they're changing, moving from kind of the whole the banking side to managing identity.
Great. So we're going to have time for 2 more questions. Then we're going to announce the Ripple giveaway. So, please, in the back there. Sorry. Yes.
So, Alan, just kind of, you answered part of my question, but how can the adoption of the blockchain itself be implemented in the governance realm, specifically for enabling investments in healthcare, education, infrastructure, and having more of basic research? So, I mean, I understand the debate that's kind of going on right now, but like, how can the adoption of the technology itself be implemented, for lack of a better word,
and kind of distance, like kind of separating that from the currency element.
Yeah.
If that makes
So,
sense.
so I'm just going to comment that you've touched on different industries that could implement blockchain technology. That's, as you say, different from the currencies per se, but there are business cases, there are projects around healthcare, identity management, again, portable health records, very securely managed by blockchain technology. How that's going to be managed, that's through this part of the technology called smart contracts. And that's a piece of this that you should get to understand, because that's where the blockchain becomes programmable. And then you can manage different, variety of business processes, and that's where every industry is looking at how can they benefit from this new technology. That's above and beyond specific currencies, if that answers your question.
In the back, right? Could I just add, though, you'll get chains talking to themselves, talking amongst each other. So one chain will allow two different blockchains to talk to each other. So imagine you have your Medicare records on one and your hospital records on another. Well, certainly there's certain amounts that should be able to talk to each other, right? In the event of an emergency in the back of an ambulance, you probably want to know both. Okay? The chains will be able to talk to each other and trade information, provided you give them the authority to do so. So one blockchain is not the solution. It's blockchains for various different things that will talk in between each other.
What coins do you guys think, over here, what coins do you guys think are solving real world problems and are backed by good teams? And what coins do you think are complete shams and are probably scams?
So in terms of good coins, I would go with Scrumble Network. Right here out of Toronto.
Awesome. We'll go with Scrumble.
Besides the big three, not the big three.
So no comment. I'll pass this over to our experts.
I'll jump in. So I'm going to take the unpopular opinion that we're not yet at the phase of capability to be solving those very problems. It's very nice and noble to think in that direction, but in terms of capability and scaling and technological, kind of ability to actually do those things and implement them, we are absolutely not there yet. The Ethereum blockchain processes 12 transactions per second. Visa does 100,000. We're not even in the same universe. We're talking about transferring, let's say, to Greg's point about medical records. If you have millions of people with millions of medical records, you're going to need millions of transactional capabilities per second or per hour or whatever. We're just not there yet. The only things, as far as I'm concerned, that matter right now are platforms. So Ethereum, EOS, Neo, Cardano, etc., because those are going to be, that's the foundation, that is the piping on which all future applications that you're talking about are going to be built on. Second, privacy, absolutely, because privacy is just an absolute right. So Zcash and Monero, and to a lesser degree Pivex and some of those other privacy coins, those are very important. And absolutely the big three, no, not the big three. Let's just say for currency and just peer-to-peer money transfer, we'll say Bitcoin. I am kind of long Bitcoin Cash, as well as Omisa Go and a few others.
So we'll address one more from the live chat, and then one more from the audience.
I'll just make one comment around what Jenny said is, I think, really helpful, because he's kind of pointed you to those protocol tokens, the ones that are also supporting the smart contracts going forward. So if there's a thesis here, it's that those that are the kind of the richer platform environments, such as Ethereum, Neo, and Stellar, I heard over there too, Cardano. These are the protocol layers with smart contract capability, and they arguably, I just speak with a lot of investors in the space that are making bets. They're making bets into into the protocol platforms.
Okay, so Raymond Tang from the live chat asks, when do you guys think people will be using crypto to pay for regular goods and services? I will take that question. So the first, right now we're in a really big kind of revolution, and the way I see it is that there's really been 3 waves so far. The first wave is, does this actually work? And you saw players like Bitcoin And the second was really being able to trade and have a financial, unit of measurement. So trading Bitcoin, let's say, for Ethereum. The third wave, the one that we're coming into right now, this is a very topical question, is all about everyday utility and mainstream adoption. So we're seeing things like companies like STK. STK, they're talking about being able to buy your groceries using cryptocurrency in real time. You're talking about video games. You're talking about once again, Scrumble being able to communicate and actually use a real application. So it's really about use case and real life everyday things. Now, of course, there's also the financial side of things, which is the Bitcoins and the Litecoins and the Ethereums. But there's also really a big wave right now of utility, and the technology is catching up and it's getting towards mainstream adoption.
If I may jump in, our coin will be tradable for products and services this summer. And with a big launch in a few big cities in the world in September, where you'll be able to buy with your impact coins some products and services within the marketplace. And we have 72,000 merchants pre-registered in the marketplace. So coming back to you, it's coming soon and sooner than you think.
I think the one really interesting thing that happened in the past week was that Coinbase launched their pay with crypto. So as you can see on most websites, you've got a PayPal button. Now you're going to have PayPal over here. You're going to have the Coinbase pay with crypto. So we're now going to be able to actually use crypto to pay on the web.
Not here, but go to
when that rolls out, yeah.
Japan.
Yeah, they're leaders.
Japan. Guys, come on. There's credit cards, there's debit cards. I just got NAGA print the debit card in the mail today. We are here in the dark ages. The world is moving fast. There are probably 100 credit and debit cards with wallet technology that are out there available on Bitcoin Cash. They have issued millions already of credit debit cards.
Okay, last question in the back.
Thank you.
Last question in the back.
So I just have two questions actually. One is more within the regulatory framework here in Canada. How does the OSC view a utility token versus a security token? How are you deemed a utility token? Does it actually matter anymore? Is my first question. And my second question, which some people might not like as much, and I want to direct this to Greg. You said Bitcoin can be considered digital gold, and it's not the first time I've heard that. And Bitcoin is no longer the fastest token. It's no longer private. I guess it never was. It's also very expensive to transact with. So my question is, and I guess I'm really just interested, why is it considered a reserve token? And is it not just going to be the gateway, sort of Netscape into Internet Explorer? But I'm really more curious on my first question. So let's try.
Which one do you want to answer first? Then?
Overlook it. The first one, please.
Okay. You want to go? You sure you don't want to hear Greg first?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. No, I think you should end the night off on a bang. So let's do the first one.
No, the utility security token notion is a long enough answer. If you want to talk about a particular use case, I'm happy to. There's common law around this. There's a Pacific Coast coin test that they use. There's a Howey test in the U.S. If you rely on the work of others to increase the value of something that you see as an investment, I mean, this is where essentially one of those tests is. It's an hour-long conversation as to the nuance around this, honestly, and that's fair. It is, but at the end of the day, you have heard the SEC essentially say they don't actually see any tokens that aren't securities these days, because there's too many of them that are kind of trying to turn themselves into pretzels and not be these.
Okay, let's let the lion out of the cage.
Yeah.
Greg, are you ready for this?
I love your question. Thank you for asking it. The question was, why is Bitcoin digital gold? It's not. It's better. Okay? Bitcoin is the most perfect form of a store of value that the world has ever seen. You guys know what Conry shells are? Or wampum? Certainly as North Americans, we should know what wampum is. wampum was the currency that North American Indians used to barter. Okay? It still exists. You can go to the seashore on Lake Ontario, and you can pull some wampum out of the lake. It's basically a beautiful colored mollusk, at purple. And in a day and age, you could have traded for peace pipes. You could have traded wampum for peace pipes. What is a currency? It is nothing more than something that takes the form of a barter transaction. So I have a little joke for you. You heard about the guy that was trying to sell a $600,000 cow? And he's walking down the street and he's got this cow for sale, $600,000. And one guy says, "You're never going to get $600,000 for that." And 2 days later, he's walking down the street, he's got 2 chickens. And the guy says, "You sold your cow for $600,000? He said, "Darn right I did. I got 2 of these $300,000 chickens for it." Okay? Currency is nothing more than what people will pay you for it. Okay? Right now, any time of day, 24 hours a day, you can go onto an exchange and figure out what Bitcoin is worth. And, by the way, it's divisible to 9 decimal points, or 8. Okay? 1 Satoshi. At the end of the day, would you rather carry around a gold bar or wampum in your back pocket, or would you rather carry around this magical piece of commerce on your smartphone, divisible to 9 decimal points, that you can transact anywhere in the world? By the way, Canada will get up to speed on that, but we don't need to yet. But Venezuela sure as shooting did. Why? Because they are corrupt as the day is long, and their currency, people run around the grocery store to get as many groceries as they could before their currency's debased again. That's where Bitcoin is valuable. That's where people own Bitcoin. 4 billion people in the world don't have a bank account. Some of those own Bitcoin, and boy, are they happy they do. Okay? We live in a protected society in North America. Don't assume everything we're seeing applies to the other 7 billion people in this world that can use this beautiful thing called Bitcoin that is not digital gold. It's better than digital gold. Okay? It's called Bitcoin.
Wow. So, thank you guys so much. Big shout out to the amazing panelists right here. We're gonna offer you guys a little special favor bag from Strumble. I want to announce quickly the winner of the Ripple giveaway. So the Ripple giveaway is going to someone named Princess Zoe's. Wow. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, sorry, just one last thing before everyone takes off. So again, thanks so much for coming. It was great to have so many great people. Our next event, stay tuned, it's coming up in April. It's called the Hot Box, and we have a Dragon's Den style evening where we have some cannabis investors who are hearing from a whole bunch of pitches from different cannabis startups. So check in with that. And please thank you again to all of our sponsors and speakers. And no more.
Just want to thank our host for tonight, Eric, who did a fantastic job moderating. Can I get a round of applause? And you're all invited to shrews and mingle over some dessert.